Welcome to The Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm so excited to have Mike Hamm back from the Morning Spotlight podcast. I imagine, because you're amazing listeners, that you've already gone and followed the show and have listened to one and realized that Mike brings just pizzazz. Yeah, I just said pizzazz to the podcasting world. And it's going to be a new podcast you're going to listen to all the time. But Mike, thank you so much for coming back to our show.
It's so good to be back on the show. It feels like I haven't seen you in forever. It's so good to be back. We always have a good time.
It's only been 30 seconds since
well, they don't. The people don't know that. The people don't know that.
They don't, but I think that's the funny window.
Right, exactly.
The window, the behind the scenes moment.
Right. Well, this is the one topic. When you told me before we actually started recording the first episode, this is the one topic that I'm still trying to think about what I want to say. But we'll maybe I'll find it as we go. I've talked on a mic before.
You have every once in a while, only like a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
So the question that I had for you was, what are you consciously or intentionally pursuing? And that could be in, your title insurance career. It could just be in a relationship. It could be spirituality. It could be like something that has maybe grabbed you and you're like, I just need to pursue this further. Go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Honestly, so obviously the title insurance world, I want to be a top producer in the state. Like I want to be the guy that everyone goes to for their real estate deals. And I want to be present enough in as many places as I possibly can be to be the guy that everybody calls, like whatever that may be. Even if it may not be a deal, they have a question, maybe they have something, but they know that I could add value in some way to whatever it is that they're trying to do. And by extension, that's kind of become what the podcast is. And that was why I started it, because I needed to get myself out there more in a time last year when I couldn't really get out there. And at this point, at the time of this recording, we posted like 105 episodes. By the time this episode actually comes out, we'll probably be at like 120 or something like that, maybe more. But yeah, that's kind of been my thing. So I'm consciously pursuing just being, I'm like we said in the first episode, I'm all in on everything. So like if I'm doing something, I sometimes get a little bit all over the place and I'll try like a bunch of different things. But then once something grabs me, and this has been one of the things that's really grabbed me in my life, this podcasting thing, like I am 100% all in, possibly starting a second show, TBD, working on that. But we're going to hold on to that. It's not going to launch anytime before this one airs. So, but keep an eye out for that maybe. But yeah, so that's what I want to do. That's what I've been pursuing. I've been just trying to like try different things, get myself out there in some different ways. I just want to be the guy.
Okay. So I just have to say that you are the coolest guy in title insurance, but part of that is also how many people are willing to actually say that out loud. Right. Most people are terrified. And I guarantee if you're listening to this, come on, we all know that takes chops to be able to like put that out into the world. Like, no, I want to be the best. And that's what I am aiming to do. Like, yeah. I love it. I love the courage. I love the determination that just comes through on that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those things where, I was never really like this, it really took last year and sitting with myself for a while, like I said in the last episode, kind of figuring out what it is that I want, and wearing a lot of different masks. We talked about that when you came on my show, because you heard me talk about that on another episode of the Morning Spotlight plug. So I think like that's one of the things that I realized is that, the more that I've just kind of put myself out there and showed up as 100% me, just my confidence level has grown exponentially. So now I'm at a point where maybe a couple years ago, my confidence level was just not there. And now just because I have a podcast and I've been approaching life just differently, all of a sudden, like I have the guts to just be like, I am the coolest guy in title insurance. Show me somebody that's cooler. You know what I mean? Yeah. I do think that people kind of get scared off of maybe branding themselves that way or talking about themselves in that way because it comes off as, conceited or cocky or arrogant or whatever, but there's no problem in having confidence in yourself. You know what I mean? So like once you're comfortable with yourself, then you become confident in yourself. And I think that that was one of the things that I had noticed. And it was just, I didn't even really realize it was happening. Just over time, I just felt more comfortable in social situations or, you know, in different aspects of my life. I just all of a sudden was just more confident, more approachable, more outgoing, all that kind of stuff. And just kind of leaning into who I actually am and discovering who I actually was, and then leaning into that person was the biggest thing. So yeah, not a lot of people have that, but I feel like more people should, because you have a lot. I mean, everybody's got a story to share and somebody needs to hear it. Somebody said that on my podcast, but I stole that. But yeah, so I think that that's really the name of the game right there.
Okay. I think that this is going to come by as like a shock to everybody. Like what? You were not, I mean, hey, you were a collegiate athlete, which that already reduces the pool down, right? I mean, not everyone can play college sports.
Right.
And you got to coach on the collegiate level. So already right there, I mean, I would be like, dude, you already have everything together. You've already done all these things. What the heck? You just got confidence? Like what? I mean, you went and played on this level. And so what's the shift in confidence that you would say between, hey, I could go out and I could perform, you know, in baseball on this super high caliber, and yet I discovered this whole new level of confidence?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Have you hosted episodes before? This isn't your first one, I don't think. Yeah,
you're actually my first podcast episode. Episode number 1, airing.
Episode
right
1. Yeah. No, but that's a great question. So I think like when I was playing, and I was good. My senior year, I won an award for being the best relief pitcher in the whole conference. So I have some chops as a player, as a pitcher at the collegiate level. So, but it was always one of those things where, because I had done that my entire life, there was one place in the world that I always felt comfortable. It could be like, you could put me in bases loaded, no outs, put me on the mound, I'll figure it out. You know, I might fail, but that's just where I felt at peace, you know, and that's like where I felt the most comfortable, and I can kind of be myself in that moment. In other areas of life, I just never really, because I think baseball and school and all those kinds of things had just consumed most of my life, that I never really got a chance to take that step back and look at myself. And then eventually when I was coaching, it took me a while to kind of get comfortable with that, but then I realized that I was good at it and I was confident in doing that. And, you know, my confidence, I think, kind of exuded to the rest of the pitchers that I would coach, because I was a pitching coach. And, you know, I think that eventually, like we had talked about earlier, you know, that life ended. And all of a sudden we were basically starting a new life at 27 years old. And it's like, well, now what? I don't know what to do. I've never done anything like this before. You know, it's like the teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. Granted, I wasn't old. I was still only 27, but, you know, it was just a new mindset shift, like the whole thing. You know, and even when I was coaching, it was one of those things where it was something where I could basically justify not taking care of myself and not, you know, doing what I needed to do for myself, because I was responsible for, you know, 15 to 20 pitchers on a baseball team. Like, they were my responsibility, and I needed to make sure I was getting the most out of them. And then just for a variety of reasons, I just decided like I wasn't worth my time, basically, and I needed to give all my time to them. And maybe that's why we had success, but that's also why I think when this new life started as a title insurance salesperson, you know, it was just totally new. Like, I had never seen anything like this in my entire life. And now all of a sudden I'm in this new environment, new job, new people, new communities, new industries, new everything, not knowing anything. Like, when I first started, I didn't know anything about title insurance, and I know a little bit more now. But yeah, it was just like I would go to sales meetings, and one of my clients now, he was one of my first ever sales meetings that I had. It was a random LinkedIn message. And we met for lunch. We still joke about, I was just texting with him the other day. We still joke about how that first meeting that I had with him was a disaster. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know. He was asking me title insurance questions. I couldn't answer them. I was nervous. Luckily, he's a very outgoing, sociable person, so he was able to kind of carry that conversation. But as a sales rep, it should be the other way around. You know, right. So I think that was one of the things that, like, I look back on now, And it was definitely a process and a quest that to get myself to this point. But yeah, I mean, it's confidence is one of those things. It's elusive, and even if you think you have it, there's going to be a day where you don't. And it's not, if you see somebody that's confident or they're authentic or they're themselves or you think they have it all put together, there's going to be a day in that life where they're just not, and it's just an ever evolving process. But it's one of those things. The more you just keep showing up as yourself as best as you can, as whatever 100% is that particular day, just show up in that way. And then you'll start to see things start to change a little bit. Your relationships will start to improve with everybody. And that's kind of what I've seen. And that's why my confidence has grown over this 31 years that I've been alive.
It's amazing. I love it. I love all of it. And I'd also like to chime in and say that whole concept of be you. I preach that all the time on this podcast, is that you are hardwired a certain way. Like, why are you trying to, jumpstart or hotwire who we are, when it's like, you don't need to hotwire yourself. You're hardwired already. The ignition will turn on. You just need to turn the key instead of trying to I got to be like this. It's painful and it's not a fun process. And when you start leaning into being yourself 100% and just trusting that, hey, the right people are going to show up, the right people are going to receive me, I'm going to attract the people into my life that need to be in my life. And it's okay if I don't attract the entire world, but for you, you're going to attract everybody because you are the coolest guy in title insurance. So, I mean, that's not a problem for you.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's one of those things too, with the confidence side of it and wanting to attract everyone. And I think that that's everyone's biggest goal. But in reality, it's impossible. You can't there's going to be somebody that does not resonate with me. And I'm okay with that now. It used to be I was not okay with it. I needed everybody to like me. But it's going to be the same thing with you. You are a very approachable, very friendly, everything like that kind of person. But there's going to be some people that are just like, that's Julia. She's not for me. And that's okay.
Yep.
Like it's impossible to appease everyone. And once you get over that hump and get past that idea that you have to appease everyone and everyone has to like you and all that kind of stuff, I mean, you're going to resonate more with the people that connect with that message. And what you bring to the table. And, it's the same thing with podcast listeners. It's the same thing with podcast guests. It's the same thing with title insurance clients. It's the same thing with, I'm sure when you're doing your syndications, it's the same thing with investors. It's everything. Some people are going to connect with what you're trying to bring to the table and some people aren't. So you need to double down on the people that are. And that's when you start to see things start to shift for you. And like you said, the vibe that you put out, you get that vibe back. So you're going to, whatever you want to put out into the world, that's the type of person that you're going to get back in return.
Oh, preach it. Soapbox, high five. Preach. Love it. All right. Well, as we wrap up this segment, I just want to say thank you. I love the, just the vulnerability and the transparency into your story and what's helped you and what you're focusing on. And honestly, I think this is the only time I can think of in 44 years where I've actually heard somebody say, no, I'm going to be the best. And that's what I'm striving to do. And that's totally challenged me, is it's very easy to simply say, I'm going to do my best.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up as my best and I'm going to, and we kind of hem and haw about it when inside a lot of us really want to be the best. And it doesn't mean I'm the best and I have to annihilate and I'm in competition and it's a zero sum type thing, but it's like, you can rise up. And so I appreciate that challenge to really acknowledge whatever it is that we have internally going on that we really want to show up and just crush it at, to own it.
Yeah.
Don't dance around it.
Yeah. Right. Because the more you lean into it, the easier it'll get, and like I said, I mean, that's kind of how I've approached things. And the more that I've done that, the more that I've been pursuing that. There you go. The closer and closer I feel like I'm getting to that. I'm still not there and I probably won't get there for a little bit, but the more that I just keep that at the forefront of my mind and everything that I do, that's what we're pursuing. And that's what we're trying to get done, and have steps in place and figure out how we need to do that. I mean, that's all it is, so the more you do it, the more comfortable you get at it. And there you go.
Love it. All right. Best ways for everyone to connect up, reach out to you, start listening to your show or order their next title insurance policy.
themorningspotlight.com. That is the hub of all things Mike Hamm, the show, title insurance sales. That is where it's at. So go to themorningspotlight.com and you can get everything about the show and me right there.
Can we get merch?
We have merch. We have a store on there.
Yeah. So just make sure you go get some merch because I always like, you have great t-shirts. You've got a great hat. I'm like,
well, this hat and this particular shirt that I'm wearing right now are unique. They're one of a kinds. Only one exists of each in the world. But we have a lot of cool t-shirts. Like you said, they're very soft. I will say that.
Are they soft? I was wondering that because sometimes you look and you're like, am I going to get that and be disappointed at like that scratchy cotton, or is this going to be really the soft cotton?
This will be the softest t-shirt that you own. So when you buy one, Julie, you'll know that that's going to be the softest t-shirt that you own. There's nice hoodies on there. There's a hat, I think, not like this one, but there's a hat. There's a lot of good stuff on there. So definitely check out the merch as well.
Yeah, definitely do that. Well, until next time, awesome listeners, thank you for listening. Remember, if you enjoyed this, if it challenged you, inspired you, encouraged you, whatever it is, make sure you drop a review down, wherever you're listening, especially on Apple, because that, the reality is it helps the algorithm and we'd like to dance around that. But hey, the reality is we want this to reach other people, to inspire and encourage other people. So help spread that message in that way. Until next time, live big and love bigger. Feeling alone? Disconnected? Conscious investors often feel alone or disconnected because of their unique perspective and desire to expand their thinking. But the journey of a lifetime isn't meant to be solo or forged by grit alone. Join the Conscious Investor community on Facebook. Link arms, exchange ideas, and expand your thinking on finances, relationship, and community. Join the Conscious Investor group on Facebook today.